Okay, so I apologize. Apparently I made a little mistake in the video that actually ended up being a pretty big mistake. So I'm just going to make this really quickly to kind of correct that mistake. Your horizontal, everything's good. So we have our horizontal asymptote at y equals 0. We don't have any holes or y-intercepts. We have a vertical asymptote at x equals 0, but I forgot to graph the second vertical asymptote at x equals -3, and that's really important. Then as we go through and we graphed, we also had, an x-intercept at 3, 0. And we go through and we graph some of the points that I had on here. And you start to see this piece of our graph looks the same. Okay, so that doesn't change. I'm going to look at the left side first, and then we'll talk about that middle section. So I want to look at what happens when I plug in -4. And again, I'm plugging it into my function. You can do it either before you factor or after you factor. If I plug it in right now as it's written up at the top of the screen, I'm going to get -7 over 16 minus 12. So that's -7/4. So that's like -1 3/4. So at -4, I'm maybe down here. What that tells me is that that my graph is going to live below the horizontal asymptote. Now, if you wanted to, let me make sure I actually put that in the right spot. That goes here. If you wanted to, you could graph, whatever -5 is as well. So that'd be -8 over 25 minus 15. So that's -8 over 10. And you'll start to see how it's starting to creep up towards your horizontal asymptote. And we know from the behaviors we talked about in the video that it's just going to stay in this little section. Now, I'm going to find out what our graph is when we are at -2. So if I plug in -2, I'm going to get -5 over 4 minus 6. So that's -5 over -2, which is +5/2. So that's like 2.5, okay? So it's right about here. Now, I could, and I'm going to, or we already did in the video, get what happens when x is -1. When x is -1, it's +2. So now your question is, what does this look like? And there's really two options. It could either look like this, or it could look like this. Those are our two options. And we're going to use that idea that these rational graphs don't make good neighbors to figure out which one it is. Since both outsides of the graph are below the horizontal asymptote, this can't also be below the horizontal asymptote, because then it'd be right next to one of our other sides. So that gives us an idea that this is just going to be something like that. Notice I'm not being super precise. I know that it's going to stay in between those two vertical asymptotes. It's going to be shaped by those vertical asymptotes. It's not going to go below the horizontal asymptote, because then it wouldn't be good neighbors, or it doesn't like to be next to the other parts of the graph. So that's the correction. Hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions.